Welcome to today's Explainer. All right, let's dive right in. Today we're decoding one of astrology's most emotionally complex and honestly widely misunderstood placements, the Moon and Ketu in the 8th house. If you've got this placement, or maybe you know someone who does, you've probably spent, well, a lifetime wondering why you feel so intensely sensitive, yet kind of strangely detached from the world around you. Figuring this out isn't just about astrology. It's about making sense of your own emotional survival toolkit. You're going to see that your unique way of processing feelings isn't a flaw at all. It's actually a profound psychological adaptation. So let's break down exactly why this happens and how the whole thing works.
So, think about this for a second. Do you ever just sense the emotional undercurrents in a room, but feel entirely disconnected from them? Now, what's really interesting about this question is that it perfectly captures the hidden reality for folks with this specific alignment. Imagine walking into a crowded space. You can practically hear the unsaid feelings of everyone around you, right? You register the anxiety, the sadness, the tension, but instead of absorbing it all like a typical empath would, it feels like you're just watching it happen from behind a pane of thick, soundproof glass.
To really get why this happens, we have to look at what's actually going on with this placement. We're talking about a massive cosmic collision happening right in your subconscious. On one side, you have the moon. And the moon is all about deep emotional sensitivity, intuition, your inner feeling nature. But then, on the flip side, you have Ketu, the shadow node. Ketu represents cutting things off, a tendency toward detachment, even disassociation. And where is this intense tug-of-war taking place? In the 8th house, the house of transformation, secrecy, and immense psychological depth. The 8th house literally forces things into the shadows, which brilliantly sets the stage for a profound internal journey.
Section 1, the Lunar Shadow Paradox. Let's get into it.
I want you to imagine a constant internal wrestling match. The moon's overwhelming sensitivity desperately wants to connect, right? It wants to feel everything deeply and find genuine emotional anchoring. But Ketu acts like an emotional circuit breaker. Just when the moon starts getting completely overwhelmed by the sheer volume of feeling, Ketu's instinct is to sever the tie, to pull the plug and just detach completely. Now, this isn't a malfunction. Actually, it's a built-in survival mechanism designed specifically to protect you from emotional overload. But, it creates this deeply confusing internal dynamic. You end up caught between feeling absolutely everything in the room and feeling absolutely nothing at all.
The result? An inner life that feels both incredibly intense and strangely disconnected at the exact same time. If you take away just one single thing from our time together today, let it be the validation of this exact experience. Navigating this paradox often feels totally contradictory. It can easily make you feel like you're losing your grip or like you're completely alone in what you're going through. But listen, it is actually the textbook manifestation of this unique astrological combination. You're not broken. You're just operating on a very specific, highly attuned emotional frequency.
Moving on to Section 2, your inner emotional tides.
So, how does the sheer weight of this internal world actually show up for you? It generally manifests in 3 distinct ways. First up, your emotional tides. These bring sudden ups and downs without any clear external cause. You might be having a perfectly normal, quiet Tuesday, and bam, suddenly a massive wave of grief or anxiety just washes right over you. It's triggered by hidden, subconscious factors, not obvious external events. Second is your intuition. It's incredibly strong. You easily sense what others are hiding, the underlying currents, but you often struggle to really anchor yourself in those feelings. And third, your inner life. Because your conscious waking mind is often so detached, your subconscious basically steps up to do the heavy lifting while you sleep. You process these emotionally charged, highly symbolic experiences through incredibly vivid dreams.
To survive this intense emotional tidal wave day in and day out, you naturally develop highly specialized coping mechanisms. And the most vital one, withdrawal. When situations become emotionally overwhelming, you instinctively pull inward. You absolutely require periods of profound isolation for inner processing. And let's be clear, this isn't just about enjoying a quiet afternoon with a book. This solitude is a mandatory reset. It's literally the only way you shed that emotional static you've unconsciously picked up from the depths of the 8th house. It's how you regain your own baseline clarity and equilibrium.
All right, Section 3, relationships and family disconnect.
Now, we really have to examine how this shadow affects your closest bonds. It's vital to ask how this built-in circuit breaker, this fundamental, pressing need to suddenly withdraw and detach, impacts the very concepts of intimacy and trust. Think about it. When your primary survival mechanism relies on isolation, how on earth do you maintain a stable, enduring connection with someone else without losing yourself or, pushing them away entirely?
You can see how this intense inner reality projects powerfully outward onto the people closest to you. In your family life, there's a profound tendency to feel, well, different, or just emotionally disconnected. Your early environments probably felt pretty unfamiliar, almost as if you were an outsider dropped into a family dynamic that you just couldn't fully integrate with. And in romantic relationships, the struggle becomes even more pronounced. There's a persistent difficulty in fully trusting emotional stability. You often find yourself trapped in this painful oscillation, craving deep, soulful closeness, but then instinctively initiating emotional distancing the second that intimacy triggers your circuit breaker. It's a real emotional whiplash.
Which brings us to Section 4, exploring the hidden depths.
Because your internal world is built entirely on hidden undercurrents, the mundane, surface-level world often feels completely uninteresting to you. Instead, you're naturally driven to uncover what lies beneath surface reality. This shows up as a deep interest in mysteries, a relentless fascination with human psychology, and a really strong pull toward occult or esoteric subjects. You're constantly seeking to understand the mechanics of the unseen, because honestly, the unseen is where you actually live. Regular small talk will completely drain you, but unraveling the complex psychological motives of a total stranger, that will keep you energized for hours.
The 8th house is a rigorous teacher, and it demands absolute authenticity. Life will inevitably bring profound experiences right to your doorstep that require deep emotional release and detachment. Now, these aren't just everyday hardships. They feel distinctly heavy. They feel like unavoidable, karmic, emotional lessons. Through periods of massive transformation, and sometimes through inevitable loss, you're forced to confront your deepest attachments. Basically, the universe strips away the superficial to teach you the true liberating power of surrendering and letting go.
Finally, Section 5, achieving ultimate emotional insight.
So, how does this all come together? Well, this challenging dynamic ultimately evolves into something truly incredible. Let's look at the progression. Step 1. You start out handling chaotic, sudden emotional waves and subconscious triggers that feel entirely out of your control. But then, Step 2. Over time, you learn to consciously utilize your withdrawal. You're not just hiding from the world anymore. You're using that time for active inner processing and deep emotional release. And that brings us to Step 3, which unlocks your ultimate capability. You develop an incredibly strong psychological insight and a calm, observing mind. You gain the rare superpower to deeply understand and analyze complex emotions, both yours and other people's, without ever actually being consumed by them. Reaching that final stage of profound psychological insight means you no longer have to fear your deepest emotional tides. You transition from being a victim of the weather to becoming the quiet, steady observer of the storm. As we wrap up this explainer, I want you to consider this. How will you use your newfound emotional self-awareness to master your inner mysteries? That detachment you once thought was a curse? It's actually the very tool that allows you to see the human soul with absolute clarity. Use it well.